Well, the good news is that the foods that cause inflammation are all the same foods, and the foods that are anti inflammatory are all the same foods. And there's a really easy distinction. The animal products and the meat and the dairy, they cause inflammation. And your plant foods, your whole plant foods from the earth, I'm talking fruits, vegetables, legumes, nuts and seeds, herbs and spices, whole grains, they're anti-inflammatory. So it's really easy. It's not like you have to pick and choose, oh, I've got to eat an anti-inflammatory diet, I better go and buy some pomegranate seeds, right? It's not like that. If you eat plants and you eat a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables, those all contain.
You're listening to the Plant-Based Eating for Health podcast show. I'm your host, Kathleen Gage. We're here to plant seeds on compassion to animals, your health, and the environment, and topics related to business that align with all three of those areas. Enjoy the show. Well, today I have the distinct pleasure of talking to a fellow author and who has written a book that is phenomenal about the plant-based lifestyle. We're going to get all into that. And Terri Chrisman has been vegan for quite some time. She actually, I believe, started out vegetarian, and she's got a great backstory. A sad part of her story is that her father passed away at the age of 51, which, I know what it's like to lose a parent, and actually both parents. And we'll talk a bit about that, how that was really a catalyst for her doing her life's work. So with that, Terri, great to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me, Kathleen. I'm really, really happy to be here.
It is my pleasure. And for those people who don't know me, my name is Kathleen Gage, and I'm the host of Plant-Based Eating for Health podcast show. That's the show you're listening to today. So, Terri, let's start with you sharing a bit about your vegan journey, what really prompted you to go vegan and how that moved into you writing this amazing book.
Thank you for the lovely praise. I like that bit. Look, I was vegetarian from the age of 18, sorry, almost said the wrong thing, the age of 18. I chose to stop eating meat because I didn't want to give up chocolate, and I was a little bit fat, and I thought, well, what can I give up that I don't really care too much for? And it was meat, and I didn't want to kill the cows, and I didn't want to kill the sheep, and I thought, that's easy. Well, I had no idea about nutrition, and I was still eating eggs and dairy for 25 years. And I believed erroneously that that was the best and healthiest way to live. And I actually brought my kids up vegetarian, and we still ate dairy and eggs. And it wasn't until the 2010s, 11s, 12s, I had a girlfriend who'd been vegan for a long time, and she kept sending me really disturbing videos and photos of animal torture. And I called her up and I said, honey, listen, I'm not the enemy here. I've been vegetarian since I was 18. I'm not the one you should be sending these things to because I'm not hurting anybody. And she said, yes, you are. And anyway, she set me on the straight and narrow. And then I was like, well, yes, I don't want to hurt the creatures, but tell me how it's going to help my health because, I brought up my kids. They need the protein, they need the calcium, blah, blah. And she sent me a couple of studies about dairy and the impact of breast cancer and all the things in dairy, like the pus and the antibiotics and things like that. And I went, I'm doing my master's in nutrition. This all makes sense. I'm going to go vegan. And I did overnight. So the journey was 30 years. But when I finally got there, bang, instantly. Because once you know, you can't unknow.
That is so true. And it always, in a sense, amuses me, but it hurts me when people say, I tried that vegan diet. And it's like, no. Veganism is not a diet. It's a philosophy. Plant-based eating is the diet part of it. And they go, I tried it and it was just too hard. And it's like, well, then go look at a picture of an animal being slaughtered. Maybe it'll make it a little easier. But or
a man getting a quadruple bypass.
Oh my gosh. Or erectile dysfunction or women getting breast cancer. And I do want to get into the diseases that are preventable that a plant-based diet can change. But Tell us about when your dad passed away. He had a massive heart attack, and my dad had his first massive heart attack at the age of 41, and then he had another one at 62. He was in a coma for a month with that one, and he lived to be 82. But interestingly enough, he died of brain cancer and lung cancer, having been a smoker for many years, and he quit when he was 40 with the first heart attack. But it was devastating to watch the different things happen with his health, but it took me until I was 64 before I connected the dots about what I ate and my health. I mean, really connected the dots. Prior to that, I tried every diet that known to mankind and womankind. But tell us about that experience of losing your father and how that impacted you.
Absolutely, Kathleen, you hit the nail on the head. It took you a long time to connect the dots. We don't, as human beings, we don't go, oh, this happened, why, I better stop doing X, Y, Z. We don't connect the dots, and that takes years and years. And I didn't really understand why my dad had a massive heart attack. And it wasn't until I started studying nutrition, which was like 20 years later. I always knew that my dad's family were in trouble. I thought it was all genetics. My dad's sisters were all morbidly obese. I'm talking couldn't buy clothes in the 70s in
Mm-hmm.
their size,
Mm-hmm.
obese.
Mm-hmm.
And he always struggled with his weight, and I always struggled with my weight. I was always trying to be skinny, and it was difficult for me. And I always felt guilty if I ate a cake or a donut or, stuff like that. So I just thought, we've got fat genes. We're the fat side of the family. And my mum was not. She was the skinny side of the family. And that's really the way, as a child and a young adult, that's the way I just thought about it. And it wasn't until I started reading the research. And then I was like, like you can change this. I mean, I'd spent my entire life exercising and trying to eat so-called healthy food, which was the vegetarian diet, because I thought that I was doing the best thing for my body. And once you get deep into the research, you realize that plants are the future for health, for human health, and that animal products in any form, whether it be dairy or eggs or meat, are unhealthy for the human body. But it took a really, really, really long time to work that out. And then, as I said, once I did, then I was like, oh, I've seen the light, and then I become annoying, right? Then I'm like, oh my God, my friends, they need to know this. And you, man, on the street, you need to know this. But I tried to keep it all inside because everybody is on their own path.
Right.
Nobody needs to be told what to do or what to eat or how to live their life, which is why I wrote the book, because people were coming to me. Because now I'm qualified, right? I've got the masters and I'm coaching and I'm doing all the things. And when people came to me, they just didn't it was like it takes a long time to learn all the things. You just don't wake up one day and go, oh, I'm going to be whole food plant-based. And
Right.
I know some people do that. I have heard stories about people who watched Forks Over Knives, for example, the movie, and they just went, oh, my goodness, all this is happening and I'm doing all that and my family's got diabetes and heart disease and I'm just going to swap instantly. And they've been able to do that. But I would say most people, they need a lot of evidence. They need proof coming from very, very different places.
Right.
And then they go, oh, well, maybe I'll do a bit of this and maybe I'll do a bit of this. And eventually they'll come to the point where they're happy with the way they're living their life.
Well, you know what I find interesting, because when I first decided to go plant-based, I would not call myself a vegan. It was like I didn't see any point in it. I saw the really the propaganda that the carnivore community and the food manufacturers put out there about how evil the vegans were, throwing paint on people, and so I didn't want to be associated with that. Even though I was very into animal rescue at the time, and I had worked in the pet industry as a keynote speaker, as a consultant, but when I first went plant-based, it was 2018. Actually, I'm coming up on my 7-year anniversary. And I did it for health reasons. I was dealing with inflammation, and I was starting to buy into the propaganda of, as an older woman, that this is how I was going to feel. I would gain weight. I would feel frumpy, yada, yada, yada. And I I just didn't feel good. I didn't feel right. And so I started doing my research and I thought, okay, I'm going to try plant-based eating for 7 days. I'll give up all meat and dairy. And I think I came across Dr. Greger's information, Dr. Campbell's information, the usual luminaries. And I watched What the Health, and I thought, I'm going to give it 7 days. And if I do not feel better in 7 days, and I'd given up on diets, I was my heaviest weight I'd ever been. And I thought, okay, this is just the way I'm supposed to be. And in 7 days, not only did I drop 5 pounds without trying, and I ended up losing about 40 pounds through the whole process, but I also didn't have the inflammation. And I thought, okay, I'll try it for 7 more days. And if in 7 more days I'm not feeling any better, I'm going to go back to eating meat, because I was looking for every reason to eat meat. I had not connected the dots. Well, it was about 6 months into it that I was at the grocery store. And by that time, I had done a lot like what you're saying. I did a lot of research. I read the books, watched the documentaries, and a lot of it, I was like, shocked when I saw what was going on in feedlots and factory farms and just the way animals were treated. And I was in the grocery store walking by the meat department, and all of a sudden it like a tidal wave, it just overwhelmed me with pain and suffering and sadness. And I stopped and I was like, how could I have been so blind? And from that point forward, I called myself a vegan. Well, what was interesting with that is I still identified as a plant-based eater, but then I went into an avenue and in a lane where I was like, well, I'm vegan, so that means I don't have to say I'm plant-based, and I started eating the vegan junk food. So like I've been through an interesting journey, and I'm really coming to terms with it at this point in my life. I turned 71 back in May, and I was like, okay, I'm vegan, I'm healthy for a 71-year-old woman. And then it's like, wait a minute, you're still kidding yourself. You're still fooling yourself. And so for me, the ultimate is identifying as a vegan for the animals and a whole food plant-based eater for my health. So do you have clients that you coach who have gone through that kind of journey? And how do you work with people to get them to understand that there's many, many layers to this whole story that we have told ourselves and that people have told us?
Well, the first thing I'm going to do is play them this podcast, because your journey is awesome. I mean, that journey is representative of what a lot of people do. It takes a long time, as I said before. And I really am just so excited that you were eating meat, and then you said, if this thing doesn't work, I'm going back, right?
Right.
And a lot of people, they're just not convinced. So what convinces them is the fact that things change really quickly. And you may not lose 5 pounds in a week or 7 days or whatever. You may find that you wake up and your neck doesn't hurt anymore. Or, hang on, I slept all night. And people don't connect those dots. They don't think, oh, that was because I was eating anti-inflammatory foods and I wasn't eating pro-inflammatory foods. It takes a while. But I had a client, and she was overweight and she wanted to lose weight, but she also was sleeping throughout the day. She was an entrepreneur, so she was neglecting clients and things because she was taking nana naps throughout the day. She had constant chronic pain in her neck and shoulders. And she was overweight and she was feeling bad about herself. So kind of all the things. And we got her on starting, she just went from day one, I'm going to go whole food, plant-based, just like you, no dairy. And within a week, she had more energy and she didn't need to take nana naps during the day. So she was more focused at work, and the chronic pain across her back and neck stopped. She, in the beginning, couldn't move her head like this. And for people who are listening, I'm moving my head side to side. Inflammation, yeah. That's right. Inflammation, and the fact that her muscles were so tight because they were inflamed. Just eating the whole plant food diet for, I think it was 2 weeks, she noticed all of a sudden, she's moving her shoulders. And people forget it's not all about weight loss. And a lot of people come to this diet or this lifestyle because they're overweight and they're feeling misery guts like you were. But they may have or may not have gone to the doctor, and the doctors said, blood pressure high, cholesterol high, pre-diabetic, you're telling me your fingers hurt, that's rheumatoid arthritis. It's all inflammation. And inflammation, for people who don't know, is the root of all non-communicable diseases, right? You get rid of the inflammation and everything else calms down. And the way to reduce inflammation is, A, don't put the inflammation into your body, i.e. the animal products, the meat and the dairy and the processed foods. And B, make sure that you're eating the anti-inflammatory foods, right? So it's a double whammy there. So people just feel instantly better, and it's not always reflected on the scale.
Right. And I think we are a scale obsessed. I just did a video about that. Are you scale obsessed? And
I'm scale obsessed.
I was, and I've avoided it. And now it's like, okay, maybe I should step on it. And it's what I find. What I love about when I talk with people like yourself, experts who have written books and a lot about the nutritional side and all that, it kind of pulls my own covers on, like, okay, here we go. And now you mentioned about the anti-inflammatory foods and the inflammatory foods. And one of my greatest concerns in life is getting dementia. As I get older, I'm thinking, okay, I've got fewer years ahead of me than behind me, and I want to make those years really count and quality years. And the reality is that a lot of people don't even know about, and it's kind of hidden information, is that dementia and Alzheimer's and all the brain inflammation diseases, probably about 97% of those people who are diagnosed, it's a direct result of what they put in their body. And yet the medical profession, big pharma, the food manufacturers, they don't want us to know that. So let's talk about the anti-inflammatory foods and the inflammatory foods, and then some of the most common diseases that those foods do or don't cause.
Well, the good news is that the foods that cause inflammation are all the same foods, and the foods that are anti-inflammatory are all the same foods. And there's a really easy distinction. The animal products and the meat and the dairy, they cause inflammation. And your plant foods, your whole plant foods from the earth, I'm talking fruits, vegetables, legumes, nuts and seeds, herbs and spices, whole grains, they're anti-inflammatory. So it's really easy. It's not like you have to pick and choose, oh, I've got to eat an anti-inflammatory diet, I better go and buy some pomegranate seeds, right? It's not like that. If you eat plants and you eat a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables, those all contain antioxidants and are anti-inflammatory foods. So it's really easy to do, right? So you just got to stop doing the bad ones and start doing the good ones. And also other foods that are inflammatory are foods that are highly processed, that have chemicals in them and preservatives and colorings and other chemicals that you would not normally, if you were going to make, let's say a cake. If you were going to make a cake at home, you wouldn't put these chemicals into your cake, right? But the food manufacturers, they put them in because they're preservatives and colors and flavorings and all that kind of stuff. The human body has not evolved to deal with these chemicals, so it causes inflammation. So we want to avoid the ultra-processed foods as well. And some of the illnesses of inflammation include diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis, polycystic ovary syndrome, heart disease, dementia in all forms, Alzheimer's, vascular dementia. I can't think of one non-communicable disease that doesn't involve inflammation.
Right.
And inflammation is, for some people, like a really kind of weird abstract concept. But what happens with inflammation is, I'll tell you a quick story. Last year I was skiing, I fell off the mountain and I ripped out my ACL and my knee swelled. Ouch. Right? Big. And you would say, that's inflammation, because it was hot and it was large and it was tender to touch. So when you have what we call an acute injury, i.e. fell off the mountain, ripped out your ACL, maybe not so bad, but scun your knee on your skateboard or whatever, the body sends in these little, it's like an army of metabolites, and they go in and they clean up the mess. So they go in and they clean up all the damaged tissue, they eat all the bad things, and they try and heal the body. Well, that is called acute inflammation. When you have chronic inflammation, your body thinks that there's a danger all the time, and it has to go in there and it has to go and rescue something.
Right.
But there's nothing to rescue, right? So the body sends in all this fluid and heat and metabolites, and it's all circulating around your blood system, and it goes into your tissues, and that's why things get sore. That's chronic inflammation. So that it's the same process as acute inflammation, but there's no injury. And so the body's like, well, what's going on? You would think that the body would send the cavalry back, but it doesn't know how to, because the acute threat is the animal products. It's the chemicals. It's the processed foods. You're getting these toxins into your body, and your body's going, oh, I don't like that. And it sends out the cavalry. And then it's systemic. It's all over your body. So then you get sore joints, and then, you get all sorts of other complications that are all rooted in this inflammation.
Right. Well, and that's the thing, all sorts of other complications. And before we go on to the next part, I want to remind people that you're listening to the Plant-Based Eating for Health podcast show. I'm your host, Kathleen Gage, and I'm talking with Terri Chrisman, who is the author of Fabulous Health, which it's a fabulous book. I encourage you to get it. It's available on Amazon. And what's really cool is in the book, there's a link where when you go to that page on her I think it's a hidden page. There's all sorts of amazing bonuses. So she's setting you up for success with your plant-based eating. And Terri, and I want to also remind people, if you like this show, you like this episode, go ahead and subscribe to this channel wherever you're listening. It helps us to get the message out to more people, and it helps with the algorithm. So go ahead and do us a solid and like and review this podcast. So Terri, what are some of the most common diseases that are caused by chronic inflammation? And are we seeing more of it in younger people than in the past?
Yes, absolutely. So inflammation of the arteries can turn into heart disease. So that's dearest to my heart, right? Because that's where my dad died of heart disease, and he had chronic inflammation, must have had chronic inflammation, because without inflammation, you can't get heart disease. So that's the number one that I would talk about. Certainly any kind of joint disease, rheumatoid arthritis, which is inflammation of the joints. There was a study done by a group of scientists in the Netherlands, and they did the study. It was called the Plants for Joints study, and they put people on a whole food plant-based diet for, I'm not sure how many weeks. You have to look at the study to find out. It's in my book. I've got the reference. And people because rheumatoid arthritis is a degenerative disease. Once the inflammation has damaged the joint, you can't undamage it. It's not a healable disease. But people found that they had reduced symptoms, which means that their fingers moved better and they didn't hurt so much. And it also arrested the progression of the disease. And it also helped. They have this thing called tumor necrosis factor A, and that is inherent in people who have rheumatoid arthritis. Mm-hmm. And people who ate meat and dairy, the tumor necrosis factor A medications, they're called anti-TNFA medications, they didn't work very well. But once they started eating plants, then the anti-TNFA medication started working really, really well. And so they arrested the development of the rheumatoid arthritis. So that's really important. And vascular dementia is an inflammatory disease too. So vascular dementia is when the blood vessels in the brain, they get clogged up with saturated fat, plaque, all the nasty stuff that you would normally get in your heart for heart disease and for stroke, but stroke is like a complete blockage. So when the tiny little blood vessels in the brain get occluded, meaning they're kind of blocked up, but they're not really blocked up, and then right at the very end, they're blocked up, all the little capillaries that touch that brain tissue, well, that brain tissue dies because the blood's not getting to that brain tissue.
Mm-hmm.
And it might not be a lot of brain tissue. It just might be here and there and somewhere else. So if you think about the night sky, if you drew a brain shape in the night sky and looked at the stars, all the little stars could be like a bit of dead brain, right? So it's not like one big chunk, like if you had a stroke, all of a sudden you can't move your left arm or whatever. It's little tiny bits all over the brain. And then you forget where your car keys are. And then you forget what the car keys are for. And then you forget where you live. And then you forget your husband's name. And so it's a gradual decline in cognitive abilities. Mm-hmm. And this is, starts off as inflammation. And that's called vascular dementia, meaning that the blood vessels to the brain tissue get clogged up. And if you get a big blood clot, as you and your listeners probably know, that can turn into a stroke.
Interesting. And unfortunately, I forget what the stats are on how many people are going to have brain inflammation that's going to cause all different types of brain issues. It's going to be something like 50% of the population within 50 years. And it's like, it's scary. And then you've got type 2 diabetes, you've got high blood pressure, you've got, when I went plant-based in 2018, 3 months later, I had my annual physical, and my doctor, didn't even recognize me when she walked into the exam room. She said, Kathleen, and because I had changed so much at that point. And then she did the blood work. She said, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. And I told her, and she was so supportive. And I know there are some people who have doctors who say, oh, no, you need to eat animal-based products. How would you recommend to somebody, and we're not giving medical advice here, but we're just, anecdotally, how would you recommend to somebody who might have a doctor that doesn't support them in their plant-based journey?
I love the quote from Kim Williams, who is the ex-president of the American Cardiology Society. Mm-hmm. He said there are two types of cardiologists, the plant-based ones and ones who haven't read the science. So if your doctor is poo-hooing the plant-based diet or telling you that you need to eat meat, he or she has not read the science. It's that simple. And if you are not happy with your doctor, go find another one. Right. You can't argue with a doctor as a patient. You can't sit in number one, they don't have time for arguments. They got 15 minutes to treat you. If you've got a good doctor, they'll spend more time with you. But if your doctor is thinking things that you believe are outdated and that are not helping your health, if you think that the advice that your doctor is giving you is not beneficial to helping you get over your issues and prevent or reverse non-communicable diseases, you really need to find another doctor. And I know that's pretty harsh words, but it's your life. You only have one life, right? And if your doctor says you need to eat meat and I'm going to give you these medications and there's no cure for it, and sooner or later you're going to need a quadruple bypass because that's just the way it is, and don't worry, we'll just put some stents in, she'll be right, mate. That doctor has not read the science. Right. I'm sorry, but they haven't. So get on the internet. The Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine has a fantastic list of doctors who have read the science, the plant-based doctors. I think even there's a website. It's probably called plantbasedoctors.com or something like that, something really easy to remember. And you can find plant-based doctors in your city. Look, I found the one in my city, and later on I found another one, but doesn't matter because I'm already going to one. But if ever my doctor moves to another city or something, I know of another one that I can go to. Right. So there's going to be ones close to you. And, technology these days, Kathleen, is so great. Most medical practices offer telehealth services. Right. So if you don't live near a plant-based doctor, then PCRM has a list of them in various states. And as long as you live in that state, or the doctor is because some doctors are licensed in different states, you can do telemedicine with those doctors and get the same level of care as if you were sitting next to them. So I would say Don't be scared to stick up for yourself. And look, you don't need to have an argument with your doctor. Just quietly go to a different practice.
I
Like,
love that
you don't need to argue
recommendation.
with them.
Yeah, because I know that, we have the different generations. And like my folks came from the silent generation, and that was where authority ruled. It's like if a doctor said something, it must be true. And a lot of baby boomers are that way too. And I think with the younger generations, they're saying, wait a minute, no, no, I don't have to be subjected to that. And I do have to say that there's a few good things that the Make America Healthy Again campaign is doing, and one is they are trying to get nutritional training within the medical school. There's a lot that I think is just a lot of hype, like they're putting all this effort into one dye color instead of like, well, let's get to the root cause of things, but that's a whole different conversation. The question I would have, Terri, is with children. How much at risk are children today because of what they're being fed in school? Because this is one thing with the MAHA movement. They want to put whole milk back in the schools. And it's like, why? That makes no, and then you follow the money, basically. But how can parents become aware of the basically garbage that kids are being fed through ultra processed foods, through meat products, animal based products? What can a parent do to educate themselves, and what can they do to raise healthier kids?
Well, I will say that I have no expertise in the American school system whatsoever. So apologies for that. But from what I understand, the kids don't bring their own lunch. They have lunch that is in school, and that the lunches that are served in the school are not particularly healthy.
Right.
I think, look, if I had kids in the American school system, I would be in the PTA raising hell, basically, saying, I don't want my kids to drink milk. I don't want my kids to eat frozen pizza and chicken nuggets every single day. And I'd be making noises so that my children could have healthy food. So, look, I'm sorry, I don't have any experience at all with the American school system, but any moves to get healthier food into schools are good moves, right? And as parents, I know I fed my kids the healthiest food I could possibly feed them,
Right.
or what I thought was, right? We still ate the milk and, the eggs and dairy, whatever. But at the time, I was under the assumption that I was doing the very, very best for my kids. And I know parents think they are doing the very, very best for their kids. But if they're buying for home, say they're buying the processed cookies and the pizzas and the easy meals and the frozen dinners for their kids, and they think that is the best that they can do for their kids, the parents need to stop and think, is it? Like, am I doing the best for my kids, or am I
Right.
doing the easiest thing? I'm busy.
Right there.
My
Yeah.
kids are busy. The kids are screaming at me. They want the chocolate milkshakes. They want the ice cream. They want the gummy bears. I'm just going to get it for them because they're driving me nuts, right? And look, I've been a parent. I know what that's like.
Right.
I know what that's like. But if we want healthier kids, number one, we have to model. We have to eat healthy food in front of them. We have to serve healthy food to them. Yes, there's going to be times when they're at school and they're getting garbage. And if you have no control over that, then we just maybe have to accept that for that meal of the day, that's going to be garbage and I can't do anything about it. But at home, we feed them the healthiest food we can, the plants, the veggies, the fruits. We give them snacks to go to school that are not pre-packaged garbage. We give them healthy snacks made fresh fruit or nuts or something. Well, you're probably not allowed to bring nuts to school, but whatever it is that you can make your kids, little homemade cookies that have not got any of the banned substances in them, such as nuts, to school, you give them to them as snacks, so they're less likely to go and buy the Snickers bars and the chicky nuggets and all the things that are on offer to them at school. So apologies that I can't really answer that question in the way you'd like me to.
You gave a pretty darn good. You'd frighten me if you had a thorough answer. That was great. That was great.
Yeah, I think modeling is the way.
Well, I do want to encourage people to go to Amazon and get your book if you shop on Amazon, and if not, is it available on your website?
Yes, absolutely. So if you're in America, I will personally sign you and and personally send it to you from my very home. I have a bunch of books that I have allocated to signed copies. And so you go to fabuloushealthbook.net and I'll give you a signed one.
Perfect.
You can order it from Barnes and Noble. You can order it from any bookstore. And to do so, you need the ISBN, and that's on my website as well. So you can have a look at the ISBN. If you're not an Amazon, oh, look, I know some people don't want to buy from Amazon, and I respect that. So you can buy it from any local bookstore just by quoting the ISBN. And even if you don't know the ISBN, you just say, it's by this chick called Terri Chrisman. It's called Fabulous Health. They'll look it up and they'll find it.
So if I go into my local bookstore, I said, it's by this chick.
Yes.
That's great. So I'm curious, what would you recommend to somebody who is saying, okay, enough is enough. I really need to get my health under control. I care about the animals, because when I worked in the pet industry, I have to say, I was actually surprised at, here are people advocating for the well-being of animals. And I was doing a lot of keynote speaking at the time. And when I got on the platform and I'd look out at what people had on their plates, it was like, okay, we've got filet, we've got chicken, we've got salmon.
I know, what is going on there? I don't understand that at all.
Yeah, I just spoke with a woman yesterday who does advocacy for vegan veterinarians and compassion to animals in the way that veterinarians treat animals. And she said more and more vets are becoming vegan, but there still are quite a few who are not, which it boggles my mind. But with that being said, if somebody is really serious, besides getting your book, excuse me, what would be 3 or 4 real simple steps for them to start the process of eating healthier? And I want to dispel the myth that eating plant-based or eating quote unquote vegan is more expensive. No, it's not. When you shop in the bulk aisle, when you shop fresh fruits and even frozen fruits and vegetables, that there are options. It doesn't have to be more expensive. So what would you recommend 3 or 4 steps people can take?
Well, thank you for saying that, because I've actually got a chapter about how you can save money in the book. So, and it says exactly what you just said. So it's no surprise. There are 3 steps, and I outline these in the book too. Number 1, start with what you already like. So in the book, I have, I might show it to you actually. In the book, I have 3 or 4 pages of healthy whole plant foods. You know, you can, all you can see is a table, right? You can't see the actual words. But what I suggest people do is get out a highlighter and highlight everything in that list that they like. And look, you might think, I don't like any plant foods, but you just start highlighting, and wacko the duck, as my dad used to say, you'll find that, oh, there's 20 things on there that I actually like. Right. So just start eating more of those things. You like bananas? Start buying more bananas. Make sure you got bananas in your house all the time. You like broccoli? Start buying broccoli every single week. Make sure you got broccoli in your house. You like potatoes? Doesn't everybody like potatoes? Potatoes are one of the most satisfying, satiating foods on the planet. You can boil up or put them in your Instant Pot. You can chop them up and turn them into Insto fries in the air fryer. You can mash them. You can scallop them. You can do whatever you want with them. They're fantastic, healthy food. Start eating more potatoes. So number 1 is start with what you already like. Then number 2 is take your favorite recipes and look at the ingredients and see the unhealthy ingredients in the recipe. So just say you're making spaghetti sauce or lasagna or something like that. Well, main ingredients in spaghetti sauce and lasagna sauce are tomatoes. They're okay. Onions, fine. Garlic, fine. Oh, minced beef. Okay, so what can I swap for that minced beef? Well, there's a mixture of options. So if you're really, really scared of going plant-based, you can go to the supermarket and you can buy the plant-based meaty crumbles. Yeah, they're processed. Yeah, they probably got too much salt. But you've never eaten a plant-based food in your life. That's where I'd go first. Right. Make your spaghetti sauce or your lasagna with the plant-based meaty crumbles. You go, I can't even tell the difference. This tastes like lasagna. This is easy peasy. Okay, the next step is, okay, maybe the plant-based meaty crumbles are not so healthy because they're a processed food. Maybe I'll swap half of those with some lentils. Oh, I didn't even notice the difference. That's pretty cool. Okay, the next time I make my lasagna, because look, people don't make lasagna every day, right? You make it like 3 times a year. Uh, well, I certainly don't make it every day. And then, okay, the next time I'm going to swap it all with lentils. So you're just gradually weaning yourself off the meat in the recipes that you already like. So whatever recipes you've got, look at them, find out where the animal products are, the eggs and the dairy. Look into my book, find out what the swaps would be. And if the swap's not there in my book, go on the internet. What can I swap for? Whatever it is, cream cheese or, whatever it is that you want to swap for, find some plant-based swaps and then put them in your recipe. Now, you may not nail it the first time. It may taste like cardboard and you go, oh, that was a fail, but that's okay. Feed it to your dog, it doesn't matter. Don't waste it, give it to your neighbor, and then try a different swap in the same recipe next time until you find what works for you. This is my favorite recipe. It used to be heavy with meat and dairy, and now I've swapped it for XYZ plant-based ingredients. I love it. It's fantastic. And then just repeat that, right? So then you're still working within your wheelhouse. Nothing's uncomfortable yet. And then the third thing is try new things. Oh my goodness, not all at once. Do it last. Try something that you've never tried before. Artichoke, what's that? I've never done. How do I cook that? Get on the internet, find out about how to cook it, what to do, and then go out, buy one because it's in season, because artichokes are only in season for 6 weeks or something.
Right.
Go and buy a fresh one and try it. And if you don't like it, doesn't matter. Maybe you'll come back to artichoke next season and try cooking it a different way. Or maybe you'll go out and you'll buy an okra and you'll try and cook, I'm just using vegetables that I don't normally buy, right?
Right.
Or maybe you've never eaten a mushroom. Well, there's 50, probably thousands of different types of mushrooms, but in the supermarket, there's at least 4 or 5.
Right.
Buy the white ones. They're the less threatening. Then you can buy the brown ones. Then you can buy the funny little fan-shaped ones. And then you can buy, you know what I mean? Then you buy the ones that look like a brain and just experiment. And don't feel like you have to win day one. Just start where you are, one step at a time. Don't freak out if you don't like it, and then just move on. It's a learning experience, and it's kind of exciting because you're getting to learn new flavors, and you don't have to be a chef. So my favorite dish is throw 4 things in a bowl and eat it. I like beans. Okay, I'll put some black beans in a bowl. Oh, I like brown rice. I'll put some brown rice in a bowl. I like some broccoli. I'll put that in there. I like some sweet potato or some red pepper. I'll chuck that in. I'll put it in the microwave and put some sauce on top. Done. Like, it's not a recipe, right? It's just food.
And that's how I do a lot of my cooking. I do it intuitively. And it's interesting because before I went plant-based, I did not like cooking. It goes way back to when I was in my 20s. I was married to somebody who never appreciated what I did. And we ended up divorcing very shortly thereafter. But I couldn't cook anything good to save my life as far as he was concerned. And so I gave up cooking. I said, I will never, ever, ever cook again. Well, then I became plant-based, and being the only plant-based eater in my house, it was like, okay, either you eat everything raw or you're going to learn to cook. And then I found that I really enjoyed it. And I think most of all, I knew that there was no pain and suffering in what I was cooking, which is kind of interesting. And I want to pivot now to your book and the process of writing your book, because again, I was so impressed with how much information you have in there, how detailed it is, the endorsements that you have. It's like, oh my gosh, Chef AJ, and I think Dr. Barnard is one of your endorsers, and I'm like, okay, this woman's a rock star. She got all the influencers. So first of all, what was your process for writing your book? Because as an author, I'm always curious how somebody writes their book, and then what are you doing to get the book out there? So let's start with what your process for writing your book was.
So I joined forces with a woman called Matali in the UK. Matali,
friend of mine, dear friend of mine.
Yeah, Matali, the vegan publisher. She had a course. I'm sure she still has the course. It's fantastic. Conscious Authors Academy. And it's a step-by-step process to writing your book. And the first process is you get a mind map and you do a brain dump of all the things you want to talk about. And for people who haven't done a mind map before, just Google it and you'll find there's some software that you can use, and it helps you basically put all your thoughts just as dot points on a map, so to speak. And then because it's software, you can move them around a bit. Oh, I think this bit should be over here, and I think that bit should be over there, and I think this chapter should go before that chapter, and blah, blah, blah. So you do the mind map, and you end up with maybe 400 points.
Whoa.
4 or 5. Yeah, a lot of points, right? Because it's all coming out of your head. I had this book in my head for years, and when the mind map started, it was like vomit. It was word vomit. It was just, there was so much coming out, and I just kept thinking, oh, I've got to put this in, I've got to put this in, I've got to put this in, and it just grew and grew and grew. And then you edit that and you go, do people really need to know that? That's just a bit of a, who needs that? And then Mitali and lots of other people who I've spoken to since said, dictate your book. It'll take you so little time to do that. Instead of writing your book, you'll be able to get the nuts and bolts in there first, and then you can expand later and edit and add bits that you didn't remember. But dictate it, and then transcribe the dictation, and then basically cut and paste it into all the little parts of the mind map. Well, I couldn't do that. And my book is scientific, and I needed to quote studies, and I needed to quote facts and figures, and I needed to remember which study related to which situation. And so I wrote it as a normal, old-fashioned person writing a book. It took me 2 years. But the last 6 months were the most productive, because I sat down. I had been working full-time for a year. I started the book and it was kind of not really happening for me. And then I got this fantastic full-time job with an organisation called the Physicians Association for Nutrition. And I worked with them for 12 months and it was absolutely awesome. And I didn't touch the book. And then I lost my job due to budget cuts, unfortunately. And I thought, no, I'm going to be a full-time writer. And I was 9 to 5 full-time writing and doing the research, and 6 months full-time. But if it's not a real sciencey book, if it's a novel or if it's a memoir, or if it's something that's in your head that doesn't require a lot of scientific research and referencing and backup and stuff like that, I would probably say that dictating is a great idea, because you can get it down really, really quickly.
I actually did that with a client many, many years ago, a dentist who had a multi-million-dollar practice. I mean, the guy was phenomenally successful, and he wanted to write a book about his whole philosophy around abundance and making money and giving back to the community and on and on. And he said, but I don't have time. He goes, I said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to set up 12 meetings, and I'm going to talk to you for an hour during each meeting. And I just started asking him questions, and I basically recorded it. We had it transcribed. We sent it to a ghostwriter, and one thing after another. And when the book was done, he said he wanted to make money with the book. He ended up giving it away. And he goes, Kathleen, I have so much money, I don't need to sell the book. It's like, well, I wish we were all in that position. But he just, it was his dream to get his book to market. And once it was done, it was an easy process. And he goes, that was so much easier than I thought it would be. So,
ghostwriting's a good idea too.
Works. Me, I'm a writer. I like to write.
Me too.
It's like, it's my passion. I love writing, and I ghostwrite for, I'm a premium ghostwriter for my clients. I do blog posts for them, social media posts. I write books with them, or for them, I should say, so that's something I do enjoy doing. But for the authors that don't, there are other ways. So with your marketing of your book, I know that you're getting on podcast shows. What are some of the other things that you're doing to get the word out about your book? Because everybody needs a copy of your book. I got to tell you, it is so rich.
Thank you so much. Yeah, look, I really appreciate that. I think everybody does need a copy of my book. I'm actually going hardcore, and I am contacting television stations cold, and people are responding, and I'm getting on TV.
Excellent.
Because I think that's real. People trust television. People don't trust the internet so much. and they do trust television and they trust radio. So I've been approaching television and radio, and I'm going on what we would consider to be regional TV and radio,
Right.
but I'm going to be on the morning show in Dallas, NBC. So
That's a great show. No, seriously, you're doing it.
That's
you're
not regional, right? That's
right
not
way.
regional. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great and it's so interesting because a lot of times people say, oh, I want to get on the big TV shows, and they've never been on a small TV show. It's like, no, you start there. And then like Wayne Dyer, when he was out peddling books in the back of his trunk of his car, and he would go on any radio station that would have him. And this was way back in the day. He was discovered by the Johnny Carson show. If you remember the Johnny Carson show, it was a big show in the US. And it was like the show to get on. Johnny Carson's producer heard him on an AM radio station in the middle of the night. There were like 3 or 4 listeners. That was it. And he invited him onto the Johnny Carson show. And there's a whole story behind that. But I think that a lot of authors, they think that it should just fall in their lap. And it's like, oh, no, you do the footwork and you let go of the outcome. That's.
Yes. Well, I don't have the might of a big publishing company behind me. I'm a self-published author, and I'm self-financed. And I can tell you the book is not making enough money to cover my expenses at the moment, but I'm hoping that it will. And if I want to get out there, I have to talk to people. Right. And I have to let people know who I am. And you never know, Kathleen, you're so right. You never know who's listening. And I would love to be on the CBS morning show. I'd love to be on Good Morning America. If I just cold called them, maybe they just wouldn't even respond to me, but it doesn't mean I'm not going to do it. I'm going to go on these programs in satellite cities. I'm going to go on smaller television stations and smaller radio shows, and I'm going to have a toolbox of experience going onto these television stations, and I'll be telling the CBS morning show and Good Morning America about that. Look, you never know until you try. And I'm going to say something to you I've not said to anybody else, and I haven't even said it to my husband yet. I entered myself into the Pulitzer today because I will never get a Pulitzer if I don't
Good for you. You know what?
So
You're going to do great.
I entered into the nonfiction category because
that's awesome.
No one's going to do it for me. Yes, I've got a publicist who helps me get podcasts, and she helped me get on your podcast, and I'm very grateful for that. But you know what? If I want to get somewhere, I'm the person that is responsible for my success. And I think every author needs to know that you're not going to be handed a publishing contract and $200,000 and you're just going to sit on your butt after you've written the book and wait for the accolades to come. That is never going to happen. It's never going to happen. So you have to get out there. You've got to make things happen. Look, I may have just wasted $75,
No, okay. Here's the thing. It's like, we could go into a whole podcast episode about this. And I do a lot of business shows, but years ago, I did a crowdfunding for a rescue dog that I had. And all I wanted to do was raise money for this. It was a dog that showed up on our property, was about 10 years old, had been a puppy mill breeder dog, was blind, rotted out teeth. It was a mess. We thought we were going to have to put her down. And the vet said, she's got good blood work, and, we could do some surgeries on her to get rid of the tumors and yada, yada, yada. And I thought, okay, let me see if my community will support me in this. And I actually wrote a product. I created a product called How to Become a Kindle Bestseller, because I was doing a lot of campaigns at the time. And I did a crowdfunding campaign. A woman who saw the campaign, who had been following me for a while. So this is just kind of to support what you're saying. Just get out there and do the footwork. She contacts me and she goes, would you come out and speak at this conference about, how to make money on the internet? And I said, well, the pet industry is not my industry. She goes, that doesn't matter. She goes, your knowledge is what we want. So I went out and did that. That one call generated in the next few years well over $200,000, not from book sales, not from the crowdfunding. I think we made $5,000 on the crowdfunding, but all the back end business that I got as a result of it. I mean, it's like people sometimes, it's so interesting. You're going to do great, Terri. You're going to do great, and
Thank
you're
you.
doing great. And I can't tell you how refreshing it is to have somebody who's holding just such a vibrant conversation. That's important too. But I think a lot of times people want instant results and they want to know that if I do this, then I'm going to get this result. Life doesn't work like that. I got to tell you, and the older I get, the more I know it doesn't work like that. But I'm curious, what are some of the other types of services that you offer? Do you do coaching with people? Do you, tell us about your programs, and if you have anything that you have that people can go sign up for, let us know about that.
Thanks, Kathleen. I appreciate you giving me the platform. Look, I want to be a keynote speaker just like you. I want to stand on stage so I can help more people than just, one at a time, so to speak. So I'm working on my keynote speaking at the moment, trying to get speaking gigs, workshop gigs. I also will do strategy sessions with people. So just say you've been trying to go plant-based and you kind of come up against a wall and you just need to get through that and bust out of the blockages that you're suffering from. I'll spend an hour with you and we'll go through some action steps to get you over that hump. So I do that. And I may reinstate my course, my online course. Look, it's sitting in the back burner. It's not online at the moment. I may reinstate it. But at the moment, I'm concentrating on getting the word out with the book. I want to get my keynote speaking done, and I will definitely help people one-on-one for these sessions.
Excellent. And how do people find you?
I'm at fabuloushealth.net. So everything is there. I've got some freebies. I've got some blogs. You can click on my YouTube, my Instagram, my Facebook, all the things. I've got a Facebook group. But rather than giving you 15 different links, you just go to fabuloushealth.net and people start pressing buttons and all the things will be revealed.
I've been known to press a button or two in my time, but Terri, this has been delightful. And in closing, is there anything I should have asked you that I didn't ask you that you want to share with the community?
Oh, thank you so much. No, the one thing that I always say to people is it's not a mountain to climb. Don't think of it as being too hard. Don't think that you're too far gone. Like when you said, Kathleen, you thought that was just the way you were going to be. You don't have to settle for second best. You don't have to settle for illness. I kind of look at our postmenopausal, post-age 50 years as there's two roads, right? I'm left-handed, so I'm going to say the left road's the good road, right? So we go down the left road towards health and vitality and energy and optimism and vibrance and all the good things because we choose to live our lifestyle this way. Or we go down the right road and we're stuck with obesity and illness and diabetes and heart disease and all the nasty things that are just making us getting closer and closer to death. And I'm sorry, that's the end result. Like we're both going to die. But why not die at age 110 in your sleep after having an awesome day running around with your grandkids or your great-grandkids, eating fantastic food, great conversations and whatnot, and then just not wake up? That's what I want. I don't want 30 years of getting sicker and sicker and sicker and sicker and sicker and sicker and sicker until death.
Right.
That's not attractive to me. And I don't think it should be attractive to anybody. I mean, sometimes I think my dad was lucky. Like he was happy. He was flying a plane at the time. But you know what I mean? He was doing what he loved and then he's gone. So he didn't have to suffer 30 years of pain and suffering. It's a tough one, right? Because I'd much rather have him here than not here. But why does anybody want to put up with pain and suffering for such a long period of time? And then there's death. I have an uncle at the moment who I love dearly. He's in his 70s, smoked all his life, drinks all his life, eats bad food. He's got emphysema. He's got cancer. He's got diabetes. Is he changing? No. Like, sorry, he knows he's on the way to death. What a horrible thought.
You're so right, because every time I go to the grocery store, it pains me as I see more and more people that have crossed that line of being fat to being obese. And this is not about fat shaming. This is about the reality of what people are doing to their health. And In many cases, it's not their fault. Like children who are obese, it's not their fault. It's that
No.
it's a generational thing where it's the knowledge is being passed down or the lack thereof. And I love what you're doing, Terri. I just fully support your mission, and I wish you the very best. Thank you for coming on the show. I feel so honored and blessed to have been able to have this conversation with you. And for those of you out there, please, I encourage you, get the book, Fabulous Health. You can go to your favorite bookstore. You can go on the website, fabuloushealth.net or fabuloushealthbook.net, correct?
Both of them. I got 2 websites.
Okay, so go check it out. Go to Amazon if you want to. You'll probably have it by tomorrow. But do yourself a favor and really look at what you're putting into your mind, body, and soul so that you can have the quality of life that you deserve. I'm Kathleen Gage, host of Plant-Based Eating for Health podcast show. Thank you for tuning in. And again, please subscribe to this channel, leave a rating and a review, and go out and do the right thing for you, for the animals, for the environment. Have a great day.
Thanks, Kathleen.
Thank you. You've been listening to the Plant-Based Eating for Health podcast show. I'm your host, Kathleen Gage, inviting you to subscribe to this channel wherever you're listening or watching the show. And please let your friends know about the Plant-Based Eating for Health podcast show. Live healthy.